Dr. Ray, it's the top of the hour. Turn the time over to you.
Great. Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Ray Lindley. I'm the Executive Director of Array Global Educational Services. We're really excited to be with you today because we have a presentation and a presenter who I think will really give you some outstanding ideas on teacher help and teacher retention. And we'll leave that for just a minute. It's great to be with you. And I first want to introduce Dr. Jacob Frankham, who is the Associate Executive Director for Array Global. And he has a few announcements for you that he'd like to make, and then we'll go ahead.
Yeah, first off, I just want to welcome everyone to this workshop. We've been doing these for a couple of years now, and it's great to see everyone from all over the country, all over the different countries that we travel, and just the friends and that we've been able to connect with. So welcome to this December workshop. Again, just want to remind a few different people about some housekeeping items. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. We'll be making notes. We will also be posting the workshop slideshow in the chat. Also, if at the end of the workshop, that's when the survey is going to be posted. And please make sure that you complete that survey in order to get your certificate. And the certificates, again, will be sent out Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. And if you do not get it by Friday, please email me right away, email us, and we will take care of it. I also want to just take a brief moment and share my screen and talk to you a little bit about some of the upcoming activities that we have. The first one is an academic contest, and many of you have probably seen the academic contest that we've been doing. We had a tremendous amount of support for our fall academic contest, our writing contest. This winter, we are doing an art contest. It's called Capture Kindness. So we want students from all over the world to go out, take pictures of where they're seeing kindness in their communities, in their countries. We want to post that. And this is a great time for us to really focus on kindness with everything that's going on in the world, to really focus on what really brings us together, and that's kindness. Another great activity, again, to bring our communities together is called Me and My Community. This is a service program that takes place from now until May 1st of 2022, where your students, if they go out and they get 20 hours of community service, they fill out our short survey, maybe even post a picture on that survey so we can see the great service that's going on, and they'll be recognized for this service. They'll receive a certificate, and it's a great way, again, to give back to your communities, give back to your country, and really develop your students, because this is what we're really all about, is developing the character of students, and service is a great way to do that. So again, if you have any questions, let us know. It's in our newsletter, it's on our Facebook page, it's on our website. If you have questions, Dr. Ray and I and Mr. Danny here are here to help you and support you as you take this challenge. The next thing is I'm going to post the newsletter at the end of this workshop. Please get in and get that newsletter, read it. There's a lot of great information, not of just the activities that we're doing, but we also include some instructional practices on how you can improve in your school, improve in your classroom, and better support your students. And then also, we are now accepting nominations for Teacher of the Year and Administrator of the Year. This is a very prestigious recognition that you can receive for your teacher, your administrator, and obviously for your entire school. It's a great way to recognize those people that go above and beyond, that have really changed things and improved the education in your schools, especially during this trying time of the pandemic that is hopefully winding down. So again, we'd like to just welcome everyone here. It's great to have Tracy with us and everyone here as we hear some great guidance and support that is going to be given to us in the next hour. So with that, Dr. Ray, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, thank you. And we hope that you all are able to show some interest in these events that Dr. Jake has talked about. I'm really pleased now to introduce Mr. Danny Eichelberger. Danny is one of our newest administrators for Array Global. We're very fortunate to have him. He's one of our associate directors and is working very hard with us, and we're really pleased to have him. And I'm asking him if he will introduce our guest for the day. And Danny, good to have you with us, and it's yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. I appreciate that. We are having the nice opportunity, very wonderful opportunity to have Miss Tracy Wilking with us today. Tracy is a 31 year, she has 31 years in education, many of which have been in leadership responsibilities. She's a passionate leader about teachers and mentoring teachers and leading them and guiding them to long-term careers in this profession. And for many of us, some of the challenges we've faced lately is, with the pandemic have been teacher retention, salaries, keeping people interested in the career field, and retaining teachers for the quality of instruction for students. And it's one that we're all passionate about. We think a lot about, and when we've traveled, of course, abroad, it's some of you have expressed that to be a challenge, is how do we create environments that make and retain teachers and create a culture that remains wonderful and makes teachers want to be there every day and continue to have students flourish. Miss Tracy Wilking, she works also at our university, UNLV. She teaches courses. She's an exceptional literacy teacher. She's been able to help many students become exceptional elementary teachers, to be able to teach reading too. And so her impact is felt throughout our community in many ways. And she's also part of these teacher mentor programs in the school she's worked at. We worked together in administrative positions at K through 12. And she has been a strategist in many schools. And like I said, and last but not least, she's a coordinator with an administrative assistant in Region 1 Clark County School District. So we're very excited to have Miss Tracy. And Tracy and I have had an opportunity to speak quite a bit about this subject. And just for me personally, just seeing how much passion she has about it, I can't wait for you guys to experience this. And Tracy, I'll turn the time over to you.
Hey, let me see how I get to myself. All right. Okay. There. All right. Hello. I am so excited to be here with you. Danny's right. My passion is teacher retention and training new teachers. It's been most of my career. On the first slide, you'll see my email address. It's also going to be on the last slide. And so after this presentation, if you ever have questions or want to come teach in America, please email me anytime. That is my passion, is helping new teachers or teachers in general. And so I wanted to just give you a little bit about myself, in that this is my 31st year, as Danny said, and just to give you a little background, Danny and I have known each other for a long time. My son went to his school when he was young, and he's now 28. So that just puts in perspective how long our careers have been together, in and out. I started back in 1990 as a first grade teacher, and in our state, it was the year of the first year that we did class size reduction in first grade. So we had, the law was 15 students in each classroom. And so I shared a portable. There was a wall, if you can imagine this room, this building that's outside. And my room was about the size of maybe 10 by 12. And I had 13 little students that I ended up taking most of them with me to second grade. It was an amazing experience. And we had such support as new teachers that it just became my passion. And so now, as we've moved now here 30 years later, what we're finding is the return on investment for new teachers. Where are we at with that? And how do we keep our teachers? And that's what our focus is on right now in our district. So I'm happy to talk with you about that today. There's a small little video. Oh, let's go to the next slide, Jacob. Sorry. That's the last slide. Go back one more. There you go, right there. So most of what I've done, no, go back one more. Down at the very bottom where it says passion, determination, dedication for training and retaining new teachers. I wanted to just start with this little uplifting video.
Oh. It's not going to a video. There it goes.
Oh.
I think we all need a pep talk. The world needs to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were two paths? I want to be in the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing unless you dream stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, and keep going. Will Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. So he retired. Yeah, yes, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything. I'm just a kid. But I do know this. So everybody's doing to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball. Oh, hi, everybody. We're all working hard to make this an awesome year for other people.
Jacob,
And you guys.
So I love that little guy, and I usually show him at presentations because we all need a pep talk. And I'm not sure how the pandemic has affected your country, but it has worn our teachers out. And so in addition to learning how to be a teacher, some of our teachers have never had real live, this is their first real live experience as a teacher, and they're in their third year. And so my passion with helping teachers, I like Danny said, I teach at the university. I've created programs for literacy and endorsements. I coached new teachers. I worked at UNLV for 10 years, and we had full programs at the time. You know, my background, I had 3 semesters of experience before I even stepped foot into a classroom. And that's not the case anymore. And so that's why I'm here, is because we really are one team, and our children going through our schools are going to be leading our world. And so we need to be the best educators that we can and have the best training that we can so that we can best help them. And that is my goal. So I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. Let's go on to the next slide. All right, so all around the world, we know that there's a teacher shortage. And before we jump in and fix the problem, we need to know why. What I talk to teachers about, what I talk to administrators about is always asking why. Because unless we know the story behind what the reason is, whether it's a child misbehaving in a classroom, a parent being angry, a teacher wanting to leave teaching, we need to ask why so that we can fix the problem. And once we know why, there's always a story behind it. And so here's one teacher's explanation of why she's choosing to leave the profession. It actually is heartbreaking to me. We're not going to watch the whole video, but the link is in there. And so you are welcome to watch the whole video. And if you have any questions, or if you have thoughts on why teachers are leaving your profession and leaving teaching where you're living, please feel free to put them in the chat, because I think that that's important for us to know and see what's similar and what's different.
Structure, and qualified personnel they can trust and rely upon. Yet it's crucial to know that when amazing staff, teachers, coaches, and leaders leave DCPS every year, it's rarely because of our kids and communities. Here are a few reasons why these personnel are leaving. They're leaving because we have a curriculum that doesn't align itself to the testing metrics we use to assess both kids and teachers, causing teachers to become curriculum specialists overnight and feel ill-equipped to tackle all of the countless responsibilities they have. They're leaving because their evaluations are based on how closely they align themselves to their administrators' agendas, instead of being evaluated objectively on their effectiveness with instruction and implementation, thus devaluing some of our most qualified educators just because they've dissented against their school leaders' initiatives or asked too many questions. While DCPS says they retain over 90% of effective teachers, most DCPS educators will tell you this is a drastic misrepresentation told in a vacuum. They're leaving because every year there are new promotions of minimally effective classroom teachers to coaching and administrative roles based on cronyism, thus destroying school culture. They're leaving because we have unethical school leadership at the campus level, leaders who lack transparency around budgetary spending on grants received for school-based programs and who promote their friends. I come from a family of traditional public school educators who, like me, believe very strongly in the idea that kids and their families should be able to go right down the street to their neighborhood public school to receive a top-tier education. We need to keep hearing from our teachers and partnering with groups like EmpowerEd to ensure teacher voice is paramount in promoting better school climates and thus retaining our best and brightest staff at all levels. Our kids and families deserve it.
Thank you very much.
I chose this particular slide because EmpowerEd, and I don't work for them. I've participated in trainings with them, but they're a free resource also, and they're on social media. They provide free trainings and workshops, and their message is a powerful one. And in our district, a lot of that was in Washington, D.C. In our district, a lot of the reasons that she mentioned are reasons that our teachers are leaving. And lack of training is one of the biggest, because they just are not sure how to do a job that they did not have a complete university experience to prepare for. So we're going to talk about, let's go to the next slide. We're going to talk about 5 questions and focus on them today. So what does the teacher retention mean and look like? I'm interested to know what it looks like in your area, your district, your schools. What's the cost of training new teachers? It was amazing to me to learn what the cost was. It was double what I thought it was. What does teacher attrition look like around the world? The data is, it's so disappointing. I just, when I saw it, I couldn't even believe it. What are the districts doing to retain training or teachers during a pandemic? And what are some simple low-cost fixes of retaining new teachers and re-energizing veteran teachers? You would be amazed at how easy it is to keep teachers and keep them going. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It costs a lot to train them, so we need to retain them. We'll go to the next slide now. Okay, so this video is based again on EmpowerEd, and it's the testimony of teacher retention in a joint public oversight hearing regarding the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. on training new teachers and what simple low-cost fixes there are. Because the cost of training a new teacher, and I'm going to spoil it for you before we watch the video, is, I wish I could put it in the chat and have you guess. So let's take 30 seconds and just type in the chat how much you think it would cost in your country to train a new teacher. And I know I won't be able to answer everybody's, but I just think that this is such an important topic. Yep, just a rough estimate. In the United States, it costs $20,000 to train each new teacher. Between the initial training and then the paying salaries for people to do ongoing training, sending them to conferences, it is $20,000 per teacher. So let's go ahead and watch this clip. This is from 2019. So right before the pandemic, actually.
Chairman Grasso. My name is Scott Goldstein, founder and executive director of the DC teacher advocacy organization Empower Ed. Thank you for inviting us to testify on the critical issue of teacher retention and for hosting this forum today. There is no debate in the research. Teacher turnover harms student achievement, school climate, and student relationships that are key to their long-term success. It's extremely costly, and it's a significant setback to schools undergoing improvement efforts. In fact, research has demonstrated that the difference between urban schools that are able to sustain success over time compared with urban schools that see uneven growth over time is whether the school has achieved staff stability and focused explicitly on adult culture. DC's teacher turnover rate is indisputably higher than comparable districts, and that means it's a problem we must address. Instead of focusing on whether the problem exists, we should focus on well-researched solutions for improvement. First, I want to start by talking a bit about what we hear about teacher turnover versus what we know, followed by our proposed solutions. First, the basics. Based on a report commissioned by the Office of the State Superintendent of Education and the New Teachers Project, 30% of teachers left their school from 2017-18 to 18-19. And I would say we want to focus on school level turnover because that is what affects our students and their relationships. The State Board of Education, meanwhile, found that 26% of teachers departed the charter sector from school year 2017 to 2018 to 2018-2019, while just 21% left DC public schools. New data released by DCPS, however, shows their turnover rate increasing again from 18-19 to 19-20 to 24% leaving their schools. What these numbers show is consistent with the State Board's findings that over the past 5 years, teacher turnover averages about 25% annually in both sectors, though in recent years, charter sector turnover has been higher, while DCPS turnover decreases. These numbers compare to a typical urban district turnover rate of 16 to 19%. According to the State Board report, as a system, DCPS loses about 70% of its teachers in 5 years, compared to 45% average at 16 urban districts reported in a recent study. We've heard for years that teacher turnover is not a problem because we retain those educators we have rated as effective. In DCPS, it's true that we retain most educators rated effective or highly effective by impact from year to year, but we still struggle to retain them in the 3 to 5 year range. In fact, this year's State Board of Education report shows we have lost 1,985 effective and highly effective teachers in the last 6 years. We also know that thanks to the new OSSE report on the teacher workforce, that retention of even effective and highly effective teachers in the charter sector is only around 60% annually. That's enormous turnover of effective teachers in that sector. The level of turnover is simply unacceptable. If Facebook, for example, had staff turnover of 25% and were testifying on Capitol Hill and said, well, we only lost our ineffective staff members, I think they'd be received by hearty laughter. That's because in other sectors, as the chairman mentioned in his opening, 10 to 15%, it's called the Welsh rule, 10 to 15% is deemed detrimental to growth in most sectors. And that's true in education as well.
Yeah, so we're losing so many teachers that our students, some of our students in my district have 2 or 3 teachers a year, and sometimes even just a long-term substitute. So I did some research for my district to see how many teachers we've lost since we started school. We hired about 12 to 1,500, and of those 12 to 1,500, we lost 500 that we paid the $20,000, well, almost to, because they didn't stay for the whole school year, but that money is lost. And now we have to find 500 new teachers and again, train them. So the loss for our students is tremendous. And it doesn't really matter what state or city or nation it is. The teacher attrition is it's a crisis. And so, you know, when we talk about return on investment, it's tremendously poor. That's just, for me, I'm always left wondering, what could we have done differently to have them stay? I'm just going to tell you a quick story that when a few years ago, before I became an administrator or went back into administration, I was a coach for brand new teachers. And during that time, we went from schools that had 50% turnover rates to 98% retention rates. And it was because of one thing, hiring one coach to work with them one-on-one. And usually I had about 25 students at 3 or 4 different schools, and we kept 98% of our teachers. And that was just one sector of our district. Our district has 335,000 students and about 35,000 teachers. And so we worked with a small portion of them, but of that portion, it was we're at the most at-risk schools with brand new teachers that had no experience. And we were able to retain 98% of them with support. So that is why I'm here, because I think and I believe that teacher training is something that we should all be working on together, so that I can learn from you and use that to teach our teachers. We know that different countries use different tools and different methods, and we need to be learning from each other. We are one world, and we need to be working together on all of those things. So we're going to look at the next slide, which is the Economic Policy Institute. Here's some research and some data that I pulled for you. So in this, next slide.
Sorry about that, Tracy. I've been monitoring the chat, and there's a lot of good comments in there about schools providing a lot of free training to their new teachers. They want them trained up really well, so when they get into the classroom, they'll have their confidence. And so it's interesting to see some of the costs that some of the schools are putting forth for that. And it's just different from country to country, but I think the idea and the thoughts are all the same, that each school wants their teachers to be to have the tools that they need to be successful. And I think that's what the big point that we're getting to, not just the tools, but the support mechanisms that need to be in place, from administration to mentor colleagues. And I think you're going to get into some of these things too, but it's really neat to see some of these different comments that are coming in. Not a lot of questions, but just comments about how we can best support these teachers, new teachers coming in. Some people are saying that it's monetary reasons that people are leaving too. But I know in the experience that I've seen in my travels and in my schools that I work in, a lot of it's just that teachers don't feel like they're supported, and they're not getting the tools they need to be successful. So I thought that was just an interesting item to bring up at this point.
I agree. And I think that when we were fighting for funding for our coaching program, it's called Peer Assistance and Review. And I went to the legislature and we spoke, and we were able to retain the funding, and then it was lost in the system. And the numbers of loss, the attrition rate at the schools that we did work at that no longer had coaches went right back to where it was. And so they really do need that on-site instruction. And so looking at this slide from 2011 and to 2012 and 2015 to 2016, it's really important to me. And again, I'm so interested to know how it works in your country, because when I went through the system as a young teacher, I had a full university experience. And in our country now, we have so many of our universities that the education programs have closed, that you can see on here the attrition rate for teachers that are not fully certified, teachers that do not take the traditional route into teaching. The attrition rate is so high. You know, we're from 1 year to, going from 2012 to 2015, we went from 14.3% to 17.1%. So if you think about going back to the slide where he talked about Facebook, and if they came before Congress and said, well, we only lost 17% of our staff, that's unacceptable. And we in our city in particular, we have so many new teachers that are coming in from different organizations that literally they have zero training or 15 days of training before they come into the classroom, because we don't have people coming in. Whereas I'll go back to 1995, when I was working at the university, and we had we had full classes, and I would run classes with 200 students, kindergarten through 12th grade. And many of them now in our district are still teachers. Some are region superintendents or associate superintendents, and their programs now are filled with teachers or young people who want to be teachers that have had no prior experience, and they're just put straight into the classroom. And so our attrition rate is directly related to the experience that our teachers have. So if you look at the very bottom where it says no educational background in the subject of the main assignment, in 2011, 2012, 31.1% left teaching, and in 2015 to 2016, 31.5%. It continues to rise, and we see that. And now with the pandemic, it's even become worse for for my particular district.
Sarah, there's a question from a teacher from Pakistan, and asking which areas should be covered in recruiting staff and training staff. And also, you mentioned the word teaching coach, and I'm not sure that everybody understands a teaching coach. Could you kind of speak to those two?
Okay, say the first one again.
Well, what areas should be covered in the staff training if they're at the school, or what are the key areas that should be covered? And secondly, there's my question, just to say, maybe they haven't heard about a coach, teaching coach.
So I believe, in my experience, and like I've said, I've spent most of my career working on teacher development. In our schools, our classrooms are very full. And so I believe that no matter where you teach, classroom management, understanding how to work with children, and asking the why behind the behavior, what do they need in order to learn. In many of my schools, they need food, they need breakfast, they need lunch. And so we have administration that's focusing on that part. And then the teacher support, they need the information on how to run a classroom and what is expected during the day, and how to teach a lesson so that students are engaged the entire time. We have many, depending on what school you're at, some classrooms are 45 minutes long and some classrooms are 85 minutes long. And how do you use every minute of that class time from the very beginning to the very end, keeping students engaged in the on grade level content? That's a big problem that we see as well, is that teachers don't understand the curriculum, they don't understand the standards from the state. And so they're teaching whatever they can get their hands on, and that's not acceptable. They need to be trained on what are the standards, what is expected, and how do we help them implement lessons that are engaging so that students want to learn more. In our state, we have what's called the Nevada Educator Performance Plan, and it specifically outlines best practices for teachers. And so that goes into the coaching part. And as a coach, when I worked with new teachers, I taught them the best practices for teaching, and then I would go in and watch them. And then we would talk about what did they think about their lesson, and what did they think went well, and what standards did they think that they hit on the best practices, and what standards did they use from the academic state standards, and did they align with the curriculum. And then I would provide suggestions and feedback, and then I would come back the next week or 2 weeks later and give them time to implement those suggestions. And then we would continue to grow, and it was just like a cycle. And every 2 weeks I would be in the classroom providing support, seeing the growth, talking about what steps we're going to take next, and then moving forward that way. And the way that we worked it was that everyone that was a brand new teacher got a coach one-on-one. So later you'll see Bill Gates and he'll talk about coaching a little bit, but everyone got a coach the first year. And then the second year, anyone who still needed support, that one-on-one support, was also given that from our program. Now we have schools where they're trying to do the coaching, but there just aren't enough personnel to provide that kind of one-on-one support. Does that help answer that question a little bit?
It does. And I'm interested in the fact that I heard you say a lot about classroom management. And of course, that's where I think maybe we need the most help as teachers and potential teachers, is understanding how to understand students and to work with students. Because as we often say, you don't teach English, you don't teach math, you don't teach science, you teach students. And when you really get that understanding, you can teach English and math and science and all of that, but you have to learn how to teach students.
Right. And I will add to that too. You have to know your audience. I feel like in our district in particular, it's changed so much in the 30 years that I've been in education. And so what worked 20 years ago does not work now. Technology has changed everything about education. And I was laughing when I first got on and I couldn't get the Zoom right. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this presentation. And I don't think I have it set up correctly. And I could have my daughter walk in and she would just go dun, 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 and it would be fixed. And so, as one of the main problems during the pandemic was that our teachers, our veteran teachers, they were all brand new teachers because they didn't know how to use the technology the way that the students do. They didn't know how to use the technology the way the new teachers did. So it really did level the playing field. And one of the big problems that I think too in teaching is that teachers teach in a silo. So they're so isolated. And if they don't have any support, then it is overwhelming to them. I had one student at the university in a graduate class that I was teaching, and he was a Teach for America student, very bright, very kind young man. And he said, sometimes I just see the sign for the next city that's 200 miles away, and I just want to keep driving because I'm so overwhelmed. And they should not be feeling that way. They should feel supported and feel excited to come to work every day and know how to do the job. Now, I always think if you put me in an auto shop and you said, okay, Tracy, you need to start fixing cars and here's the handbook and go. I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't understand the language of the handbook for how to build a car. I wouldn't feel successful if you left me there alone. And so when I work with teachers, I try to help them find out what they need and then help them grow in that area. And there's a book that's been around forever. It's by Harry Wong. It's called The First Days of School. And I believe that book to be as valid today as I did when I was 21 and a very first year teacher. I still refer to that book when I work with new teachers.
We use that a lot too. And in fact, we're talking with some people in Egypt, I believe, about this book, and it's very expensive to buy the book and have it mailed to another country. However, I think most of the things are online, but it is an outstanding resource to answer many of the questions that are being asked, called The First Days of School by Harry Wong.
Absolutely. And if you don't remember that, just email me and I will get you the information because I do. And I do think the other thing too is important is that children feel safe at school. If you don't feel safe, then you can't learn. And so creating an environment where when they walk into your classroom, they know that they're valued. And, the first 10 minutes of the day is going to tell how your class is going to run. So if you're standing at the door and you're greeting your students as they walk in, and you already have some kind of an activity, then they know they have a structure, they know what to do and get right to it while you're greeting the other students and then greeting them or saying goodbye and what we're going to do next time. When I was a kindergarten teacher, I had a veteran teacher say to me, make sure you always have a hook at the end of your lesson so that they're excited to come back tomorrow. And so those things, little things like that are free. And we'll talk more about the free things as we go along. But it's just so sad to me that when you look at that last, where it says that last part, no educational background, that's what's happening in our district, is that we have 31% or more leaving. We've had 500 teachers, like I said, 500 teachers leave just since August. And that number will continue to grow. I'm actually worried when I get back after Christmas, or after our winter break, to see how many teachers left. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here we talk about the credentials of teachers who stay in their schools versus those who quit. And if you look at the numbers, it is really telling that teaching at the same school, whether it's low poverty or high poverty, it doesn't matter. If you stay at the same school, you have that consistency, that's a big part of why teachers stay or why teachers leave. The traditional route to teaching that we're working so hard to try to get back, where they have the 2 semesters of a practicum, which is where they go in 2 days a week and get to watch teachers teach and then teach lessons, and then their student teaching where they take over the classroom, that traditional route that prepares them so much for when they get in classroom. And like I said, that's what I had. And then if you look at the experience, if they have more than 5 years, look at the number that left teaching in low poverty schools, 79%. And in the high poverty schools, again, 75%. They're pretty close. So it doesn't really matter where they're teaching, they're still leaving. And that goes back to what the gentleman from Focused Ed was talking about, that attrition rate around 5 to 7 years is incredibly high. And then that lack of educational background, or if you have the educational background, there's still 68.8% leave after 5 years. These are incredible numbers, and they're terrifying for our students, and the lack of consistency that they're getting in their educational career. So I wonder, when you think about your district or your school, how many teachers are you losing? The data is showing about 6 out of 10 are leaving each year. So what are you seeing, and I think about what can we be doing differently? And I have many ideas when I go into schools and I see what's going on. But even as a teacher, how can you help your colleagues to feel secure in their position and to stay into teaching? So let's go to the next slide. I wanted to just show you a little bit about the United States, where it shows that same research. And the state that I live in is Nevada, which is very high in the amount of teachers that we lose. It's and then so it's 6.9% that we lose each year, and in my district we're behind anyways, because we start with so many teachers that left for retirement perhaps, and then teachers that left because they wanted to move back home, and trying to refill those positions every year. I've been doing this 30 years now, and it's been an average of about 1,200 teachers each year that we have to replace. And remember, that's at $20,000 per person, United States dollars. So let's go to the next slide. This is where we look at the countries around the world and their teacher shortage, and the teacher pupil ratio and how high that gets because of the shortage. So I'm not sure if many of you have a country that is near you or you're in one of these countries, but I just thought that this data was really eye-opening to me, and things that I thought I need to share with my colleagues and with my boss who runs our entire region.
And Tracy, we do have a big group from Tanzania and that part of Africa. Big shout out to them, as they are going to be the forefront leading this charge to make these changes to continue to improve education in that part of the world.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. And my goal in being here today is to learn from you. So if you have ideas and things that you've seen that work really well, I would love for you to email them to me, because whatever we can learn from you and you can learn from us is only going to benefit our students. And that's where my passion lies. So now we're going to talk about losing teachers during a pandemic. And, how did the teachers feel how did you feel about teaching during the pandemic? Were you virtual? Did you have to learn how to teach on a virtual platform? Because for many of our teachers, they left. The more veteran teachers retired because it was too much for them. They couldn't figure out the technology. Has this had an impact on your district? What's the attrition rate from the pandemic? And what is your school doing to support teachers? These are things that I think about at night when I'm laying in bed, is what are we doing to support our teachers to make sure that they feel valued and they feel that if that's not perfect because they're learning something brand new along with the students, are they going to be supported by that? And I have a little video clip if you'll click on the title.
Tracy, while you're setting that up, can I say something?
Absolutely.
So one thing I've noticed too is when teachers, especially young teachers, came into the profession, they were heralded for their ability to work through, navigate technology, and they were very adept at that. But in the meantime, they lost a lot of our support because everyone had new challenges. So a lot of that coaching cycle, some of them lost some of that instrumental teaching at the beginning. And what I've learned from teachers, and when I say young, I don't mean young in age, I mean young in the profession, is they want a lot of feedback, a lot of support, things that are actionable. They need those mentors and those sages that have been in the career. And I think we just cannot lose that sight. So when we talk about the expense that the cost for this, it's a lot of the support and the salaries of those employees too, that it takes to support. It's not just books or one-time training. It's that constant feedback and that constant support from professionals so that they don't leave the profession, that they feel like they have a team around them that's going to help them grow. Once young teachers, to me, see that they don't have, that the school doesn't have capacity to train them other than just survival level, that's when I feel like we see people leaving.
Absolutely.
And you know, Danny, you said something, I think it's very important, and it's going right along with what Tracy is talking about, and that is a team effort. I don't think we just necessarily depend on the administrators to come and do this. Sometimes you have teachers in your school who have a full understanding of all of these issues and working together and finding ways to help each other, maybe visiting each other's classrooms and so forth. That's another way of coaching that I think will help these newer teachers or teachers who are struggling with the word team is really important here.
It is. And before we go into the video, I just want to add that as I was a new teacher, there was no funding for me to be able to leave my classroom to go watch new teachers or watch experienced teachers. So I did it during my preparation time, and I would go take notes and then come back and meet with them after school and ask questions about how they did things. You know, the ideal would be that there is an instructional leader that takes new teachers into the classroom, and you have 2 or 3 new teachers watching with guided questions that then afterwards they can debrief with that instructional leader to or instructional coach to understand why that worked or how they could implement that into their classrooms. And so Bill Gates is going to talk a little bit about coaching as well.
Everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player. My bridge coach, Sharon Osberg, says there are more pictures of the back of her head than anyone else's in the world. Sorry, Sharon. Here you go. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. Unfortunately, there's one group of people who get almost no systematic feedback to help them do their jobs better. And these people have one of the most important jobs in the world. I'm talking about teachers. When Melinda and I learned how little useful feedback most teachers get, we were blown away. Until recently, over 98% of teachers just got one word of feedback: satisfactory. If all my bridge coach ever told me was that I was satisfactory, I would have no hope of ever getting better. How would I know who was the best? How would I know what I was doing differently? Today, districts are revamping the way they evaluate teachers, but we still give them almost no feedback that actually helps them improve their practice. Our teachers deserve better. The system we have today isn't fair to them. It's not fair to students, and it's putting America's global leadership at risk. So today I want to talk about how we can help all teachers get the tools for improvement they want and deserve. Let's start by asking, who's doing well? Well, unfortunately, there's no international ranking tables for teacher feedback systems. So I looked at the countries whose students perform well academically and looked at what they're doing to help their teachers improve. Consider the rankings for reading proficiency. The US isn't number 1. We're not even in the top 10. We're tied for 15th with Iceland and Poland. Now, out of all the places that do better than the US in reading, how many of them have a formal system for helping teachers improve? 11 out of 14. The US is tied for 15th in reading, but we're 23rd in science and 31st in math. So there's really only one area where we're near the top, and that's in failing to give our teachers the help they need to develop their skills. Let's look at the best academic performer, the province of Shanghai, China. Now they rank number 1 across the board in reading, math, and science. And one of the keys to Shanghai's incredible success is the way they help teachers keep improving.
All right, thank you. So that is the question: is how do we help teachers continue to improve? And when I watched that video clip, I thought about how devalued I feel that the teaching profession has become, and that just speaks to the lack of coaching. And I was watching in the chat, and somebody said, the work overload is also incredible. And when you have a coach, or you work together as a team with a group of teachers, and in farms they have those silos where they hold the hay, and that's where I feel like the pandemic was really eye-opening, because everyone had to come out of their little individual boxes, or their silos, as I call them, and they had to work together. And so from that, there were teachers that probably would have left that stayed because they had other teachers to talk with, and their workload was somewhat reduced because they were planning together as opposed to just being isolated and having to plan alone. So if we go to the next slide in talking about how we keep teachers teaching, we need to have better teacher preparation. They need to have more than just 15 days or 3 months of teacher preparation. We need to develop residency programs where they go in and they teach with somebody. They get to observe and teach at the same time. The grow your own program. In our district, what we're doing right now is we are creating a program where our certified special education aides are able to work with another organization and the school district in partnership, and they're going to be able to get their teaching licenses. So we're growing our own. We have schools that have pre-teacher programs so that when they graduate, they're already ready to go into a teaching program. And then they're coming back and teaching in our own schools. And then looking for incentives for early retirement, so hiring can start sooner. If we tell people we're leaving in August and school starts in September, that doesn't give us time to find really high quality educators. And then reducing the barriers, such as removing the caps on allowable years of experience. You should be paid for what you're worth. And if you've taught 15 years and you move, you should be starting at that same level of pay. And going back to the one that I think is most important is having the coach and the mentor and observing other master teachers. And then this is a big one for me also, conducting valuable exit interviews. When people leave, we need to know why they're leaving instead of just a 1 or 2 question survey, which is what we have right now. And I'm hoping that will improve. And then having strong leadership in the building, making sure that that your administrators are there to support you, that they're not there to catch you doing something wrong. I loved being an administrator in a building because I was able to coach the people that I usually did English or social studies. And when I worked for Danny Eichelberger, I was able to do 4th grade through 12th grade because we were a K-12 school. And that probably was my favorite job ever, because I was able to go into coach 4th grade teachers and then go up to 12th grade and teach and coach 12th grade teachers. And they were able to learn from each other. So because what starts in kindergarten is going to provide them a solid foundation when they're ready to graduate high school or go on to whatever school the trade school or whatever. If we don't start preparing them early, the students, they won't be prepared when it's time for them to leave. And so having that K-12 experience was so powerful for me, and being able to help them see what they needed to do to make sure when they got to that 12th grade English class, they were prepared for the writing assignments and the expectations, and they understood the curriculum. So I think that, that I have one last slide. I just want to say thank you so much today for your comments and for your interaction in the chat. I love it. We really do need to support each other. We are in different countries, but we are one world, and our children are really going to be they're our future, and we need to work together and support each other as a team. And so I appreciate you being here, and I'm so honored that I was able to present and to be a part of your day today. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Tracy. I think it's obvious from the number of questions and comments that we've received from people. Several people have commented, asked questions, and so forth. And I encourage everyone, if you didn't write it down, be sure to write down Tracy's email address. As our other presenters, I know that she would be willing to speak directly to any specific question you have. And I want to say, Tracy, that you're singing my song as far as teacher. We really have to support each other. And one person put a statement in there about, well, you know, what's the advantage of helping another teacher or something like that. And I think, wow, if we can help each other, we'll all grow stronger. And guess who benefits most? The students. And so thank you, Tracy, for a wonderful time today. And for those of you who have attended, I think, Dr. Jake, we could probably, if maybe one or two people want to raise their hands and ask a question, I think we have a couple of minutes that we can do that. Does anybody want to raise a hand and ask a specific question?
Dr. Ray, I've been keeping track of some of the questions that have been coming out. If you want to deal with that now, or if we want to do that, it looks like Farouz has a question. Let's see. Let's listen to him first, and then we can answer some of the questions. Go ahead, Farouz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for an exciting presentation, Ms. Tracy Wilking. My question is the following. You know, most of the times we've been keeping an eye on the chat box, and people were commenting pretty much the same thing, like, most of the teacher retention problem is attributed to the monetary problems, like it's related to money issues and yeah. But from your perspective, it would be more, you know, better to know, is there any other root causes, the crux of this phenomenon, this problem, apart from monetary issues? Like, why are we losing teachers globally, especially language teachers? So that's my question. Thank you.
Do you want me to address that?
Cheers,
Yes.
Tracy.
I take that back to, thank you for the question. It's a great one. And monetary is a big one. And especially, you know, I had a friend one time that said, I wanted to stay a teacher. We were in graduate school together. And he said, I wanted to stay in the classroom, but I couldn't support my family on that. And so I had to go into administration. So our district has changed that to where through professional development, teachers can continue to earn up to almost as much or more than administrators. So I think there is a fix for that. But I do think the other reason, I think there's two big reasons. You know, people say all the time that you'll work for anybody that supports you. And if you feel valued and supported, I'm here because Danny Eichelberger supported me when I was working at his school, and I would go anywhere with him. We talk about that all the time because of the way he treated his staff and the level of support that he gave. And so I think in the classroom as teachers, we have that same power and can help our colleagues feel valued and feel supported. And actually it takes away from the workload, because once you've done that and you have a veteran teacher next to you, then you teach together. And that increases the quality of the education, and it increases the that we are team people, right? And we know no one likes to be isolated. And when you have someone that that you feel like is on your team, it makes you want to stay because you don't want to let your team down. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. We'll take one more question. Anybody? Thank you.
Well, Dr. Ray, we could wrap it up, and then as people are filling out the survey, then
that's great.
Then we have some questions that have been posted, and I just want to mention that I have posted the survey in the chat box. Make sure that you fill that out. Again, fill out your email correctly. If you do not get an email immediately after you fill out the form, it means you did not fill out the email. You didn't fill out the form correctly, didn't put your email in correctly. Also, if you have not received a certificate by Wednesday or Thursday next week, please let me know. And then also I've included the newsletter in there. Please make sure you review all the different great activities that are going on, the services that we're providing, and just make sure you sign up for our newsletter that we send out twice a month. We're excited to have that. So Tracy, I would just like to give my heartfelt gratitude to you for this great presentation. It made me rethink about how to work with my teachers in the schools that I work in, and with all the schools around the world that we work with also. It was just a really eye-opener to really take care of the people that we have, because in a lot of other professions, we would not allow this to be taking place. We wouldn't allow doctors to be turning over this quickly and not be treated as well. So great thoughts and ideas. And I think everyone is really thinking of ways that we can improve our support for teachers.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Jake. And by the way, there are several people who are making comments in the chat room that the survey is not working, or they're not able to open it or something.
It does work. Yeah. Just make sure that they get in there and do that. Great. Initially, the first link, for whatever reason, wasn't linking correctly. I think there's an extra space in there.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Let me conclude our time together today with something that I read recently. And I hope that we all, as teachers, and we're all teachers, no matter if we're an administrator or counselor or a teaching or assistant or whatever, we're all teachers. And it is this: I wasn't born to just teach. I was born to inspire others, to change people, and to never give up, even when faced with challenges that seem impossible. I wasn't born to just teach. I was born to inspire others. May we all leave this particular workshop with that on our minds. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And again, Tracy, thank you for a wonderful presentation.